Hey folks, I'm Filler B, and welcome to a new series on the channel where I'll be exploring in one-off episodes games that I like, games that I play on my own time, games that I've run across that I think you might be interested in, all games that I approve of. And the first one in this series is Wingspan. So Wingspan is an interesting concept that might sound really hokey and lame to start, but I swear this is an awesome game. It's a game about collecting birds. Yep, that's right. You heard me. Collecting birds. And the person who collects the birds the best wins the game. It's based off a board game, which I believe is made in Europe. I can't quite remember the company that makes it. But it's a great board game. Easy to play, doesn't take super long time, and the digital version is extra awesome because it has this wonderful soundtrack, which you can hear in the background. And great animations of all the birds, and the birds make noises, which you'll see in a minute. So there's a couple of different ways you can play. Of course, you can play online with friends, so you hook them up online and you can all join a game. I think Wingspan supports play together on Steam, so that one person owns it, other people can just log in. I believe that's how that works. I've never done this option, but it is pretty cool, and I like how the background moves along here. And then just normal play here is fine. So they have a version of the game called Automa, or however you pronounce that word. I've never played this. They have it for the physical board game too, which allows one player to play the physical board game all by themselves, right? You don't have to play it with friends. Just play it by yourself at home. And they've ported it into the online game. But because it's an online game, I can set up AI. And so I'm just going to set up AI and do that myself. So I'm going to set this person to a moderate AI, and this one will be me because I am the bear. And if you want to change your picture, you just click here, you pick your color you want. I like purple. Of course, I'm going to pick the bear, but they have other options, and then you can pick the kind of background you want. And they have a whole bunch of backgrounds you get. Some of them, these EEs, are from a European edition expansion. And then these ones are from the base game, and then there's a seasonal one that changes with the season of the times. Let's put the seasonal one on. Why not? And of course, you can pick what your opponents look like, whatever. So we have the duck in a coat, we have the hedgehog, and we have, I believe this is a grouse or a pheasant of some sort. Very good. And so we have two AIs at the medium level difficulty, and we have one at the easy difficulty, and then of course myself. And over here you can change the kind of end of round goal counting you can get. I like putting it on the just points, which is fine. This will mean more once we get into the game. This is if you want this order to stay the same always, or if you want it to be shuffled. I prefer shuffled. And then, of course, what expansions you can include. I want to include them all, of course. Go to the next screen, and this begins the game. As you can see, the game is very pretty. The other players will go first, and then I'll explain how to play the game. This beautiful little hand-drawn house here. So the way the game works is simple. On your turn, it says over here on the left, you will take one of 4 actions. You can play a bird from your hand. So this is how you get bird points, and you collect birds. You put them into the field, and they count as points, and they're in your collection at that point. And birds have different abilities and powers and stuff like that, which we'll talk about in a second. Or, and this is an or, you can gain food and activate forest bird powers. So I'll explain that in a minute, but food is important. You can see it over here. There are berries, fish, worms, mice, and grains, or whatever that is. And then the dice over here is the current feed pool. You can also lay eggs and activate grassland bird powers. So you get eggs on different birds, and they count as points. And you also use eggs to lay down birds, which we'll talk about as the game goes on. And lastly, you can draw bird cards and activate wetland powers. This is how you get more birds into your hand, and then you have to have birds in your hand to be able to play them. That's how you do that. There are 4 rounds, and each round has a diminishing number of turns in it. So right now we have 8 little cubies. So in the physical game, there's actual cubes you have. And so the first round has 8 turns, and then the round ends, and then the round ender happens. We'll explain that in a minute. And the next round, you lose one of these cubies. So the next round is 7 turns, and the round ends. And this one is 6, and then the round ends. And the final round is 5 turns, and then the round ends. In each turn, you can do one of these actions. Just one. So we'll start our turn here. And at the beginning of the turn, you get to choose between up to 5 things. So up to 5 birds and up to 5 food, and that's total. So it'll be 3 food and 2 birds, or 4 birds and 1 food, or 1 bird and 4 food, and whatever. And you can only pick 1 of each type of food during this phase, and you'll also pick a bonus card. So this is sort of a ongoing bonus points situation that you get while playing. So right now we have the nest box builder, which means birds that live in the tree holes. So these are like chickadees live in a tree hole, for instance, in the real world. And this bird game reflects all that kind of stuff. So they have nests there. So if you have 4 to 5 birds who live in this kind of bird thing, then you'll get 4 points. And if you have 6 or more birds in your collection that live in the tree holes, you get 7 points at the end of the game. And so the birds must have a tree hole thing or be the special star symbol, nest symbol. The star just means it's sort of a wild card, it's an anything bird. On this side we got the cartographer birds. So birds with geography terms in their names. A lot of birds have names. So like the American robin, for instance. You can see the first thing here is American. That would count as a geography term. But so if they have Atlantic or Baltimore, like the Baltimore Oriole, California, Canada goose, for instance, for Canada, Caroline, Chihuahua, Corsican, Eastern, blah, blah, blah. So you can see it all here, prairie, sandhill. All that stuff is geography stuff. And so if you have 2 to 3 birds in your collection that have geography, you get 3 points. Or if you have 4 or more, you get 7 points. And at the bottom here, it tells you how many of all the cards in the game have these symbols. So there are 31% of all the cards in the game have either a tree hole or a star symbol on them, and only 23% of the cards in the game have a geographical name. We'll come back to this and decide in a second, because it'll be based partly on here. Do I have any geography names across here? No, I have 0 geography names. The bobolink, the yellow-billed sapsucker, the white-breasted nuthatch, the king rail, and Eleonora's falcon all don't have geography names, so I probably won't do that. But I do have 2 birds that have the holes. So that's pretty good. The other thing we want to consider when picking birds, so we'll probably pick the whole thing, so we'll do that. Picked. We can get 1 of 1, that one is picked. And you can get more of these as the game goes on. And we run across that card, I'll show you. Oh, what is running here? So this king rail, for instance, so when we play it, it will give us 2 new bonus cards, and we get to keep 1. So we can add more bonus cards as the game goes on, as you play birds. So this bird, we'll talk about bird powers for a second here, and what's on the bird cards. So this bird, when you activate the card, which means when you play it onto the board, it does its power once, and then it's done. It doesn't have any more powers. All it does is count for this kind of nest bird, this kind of water bird, and the 4 points that it's worth. And if wingspan matters, there's its wingspan. As well, it has egg slots. It has 6 egg slots in it that you can put eggs in when you collect eggs. But other birds have things that are activated. And if you remember back at the beginning, it said if you wanted to gather food, lay eggs, or get new birds in your hand, that it would activate either the forest, plains, or water birds. And that means that that will happen. So for instance, this bird is a forest-only bird. So when you play the white-breasted nuthatch into the forest row, which we'll show in a second, when you activate that, this bird will activate. Every time you activate the collect food, this bird will activate in that row once you've played it, and you will gain 1 grain from the supply and cash it on this card. So it adds a little marker here, and those caches count as points at the end of the game. This bird also lives in the forest, so when it's activated, you gain 1 worm from the supply, and you put it into your food pile here. Got it? So in this game, when you play it, you lay an egg on every bird with a ground clutch. So this is birds who lay eggs on the ground. This is what that means. And this bird is, when activated, we roll dice that have not been used, and they will, if they roll a rat, you gain an egg on this card. Lots of cool bird powers here, and bird powers will synergize with each other and with actions along here. So you may want to play towards a certain game style, whether that be collecting a lot of birds, or getting all your food from birds, or gaining a lot of eggs from birds, or so on and so forth. So for this round, and what's on the bird thing? Let's talk about that. So this is the zone they can live in. So you can only play these birds in these zones. Birds can live in more than 1 zones. It just happens that all these ones don't. So these ones only live in the water, these ones only live in the plains, only the water, and these two only in the forest. And you can have a maximum of 5 birds played in each zone. So there's 15 birds total that you could have on your board. You can possibly collect it. It's very hard to get all 15 during the game, and you'll see why as we play. This is the food that's required. So the Bobolink here requires 1 worm and 2 seeds to be able to be played. The falcon here only requires 1 worm and 1 rat. Our little nuthatch here requires 1 worm or, that's what the slash means, 1 seed, so it's very easy to play. And this requires any food plus a fish plus a worm. So it's 3 food total, and 2 of them have to be a worm and a fish. And the last one could be anything in this row along here. So it's a little easier to play, but it requires still a lot of food. And as you can see, the value of the birds, this number here with the feather next to it, it goes up and down. And usually the birds that are very easy to play and don't have really sort of semi-powerful powers. This one creates points for the end of the game, so I would call that kind of a good power. They usually have a lower value of the bird. And the value of the bird is also reflective in the real world of how common the bird is. So white-breasted nuthatches are a fairly common bird, whereas the falcon here, Eleonora's falcon, is not so common, so it makes it rarer. So you get a rarer bird in your collection, and or whatever, bird watchers and so on go ooh-ah over it, and it gives you more points. Very cool. So anyhow, let's decide what we want here. So I like this nuthatch, so we'll gain the nuthatch. I also like the sapsucker because it gives me more food when I get food. So I'll have even more food when I get food. Other than that, so to play these, I'll want one of these, and one of these. And if I do that, I can play all 3. Play both these birds because I've got the berries and the worm for the yellow-bellied sapsucker, and the white-breasted nuthatch. I just need a seed over here, and I can't get 2 of these at the beginning. I can only get 1, so I'm going to play the other one, which is the seed. And I think I'll do that at the beginning. It gets me a little forest heavy at the beginning, but if we're going to go for a food-based build, that makes sense. If we remind ourselves over here, we wanted the birds with the whole nests. There's 2 right there as well, so that plays right into that as well. So that's done. So we'll go next, and that'll end our sort of pre-turn where you pick your birds and your starting food. And then we'll get into the actual first turn of the game. So the AI will play their 2 turns, and then we'll start our turn. You can see our first little square goes down. We have 8 squares. The first one went down to indicate that we started that turn. Now we pick what we want to do. Well, I can play these birds. So let's, I guess it doesn't really matter which one I play first. So let's play the sapsucker. It's only worth 3 points, so it's not great, but it's okay. And it says what kind of food do you want to use based off your supply. The computer is smart enough to suggest what is the most optimal food, but you may not always want to do this, and you can change it if you want to. But for me, this is the optimal choice, so I want to do that. Bird makes a fun noise, and it plays down on the thing, and that first turn in that sequence of 8 of this round is done because I did a forest. I did a play a bird action, which is this wind one. So I'd like to play the second bird, the nuthatch. But the problem is that the nuthatch, if you look here, this row requires an egg to be able to play it. That's what that means. It also tells you what happens, what's right here. So we'll go down a row and you can see. So without any birds in the egg row, for instance here, if I wanted to gather eggs, I would get 2 eggs. If I had a bird and I played it here, it would cover up this symbol, and you would use this as your next thing. One open square to the right, or the open symbol to the right. And so if I did a gather eggs, we would get 2 eggs, and if we wanted to, we could spend food, any food of our choice, to gain an additional egg for 3. If I had 2 birds here covering this up, then we would use this one. Whenever I gathered eggs, it would give me 3 eggs. No other bonuses. And the little brown spot on the top, you can see here, means this is how many eggs is required as a payment to be able to play a bird in this row, in this slot. So the first slot here doesn't have any, which is why I was able to play the sapsucker here without paying any eggs. But if I want to do in the second round, then the sapsucker has taken up the free slot. So I'm going to have to use an egg to be able to play the white-breasted nuthatch in this spot. So I need to get eggs. So this turn I'm going to have eggs. And you can see here the same thing I was talking about with the eggs here, that we're going to use this. If we collect food, we get 1 food from here. That's what this means. You get 1 dice. From here, you pick whatever dice you want. And then if I wanted to spend a bird in my hand, which is what that means, I could get an extra food. And that bird will go away into the discard pile and we get more food. And over here we get 2 food. 2 food plus if I spend a bird I can get 3, and then 3 food, and then 3 plus if I spend a bird I can get 4. Sort of it goes up, and it's the same at the bottom here. You get 1 bird drawn from the bird pile here. You get 1 bird, and if I spend an egg I can get 2. Same thing goes on here. So anyhow, I can't play the nuthatch, so let's go down here and get some eggs. And then we click on the birds we want eggs. Well, I only have 1 bird, so we'll put them here, and we'll call that good. That's the end of our second turn. There we go. So we'll spend our nuthatch, we'll spend the only food we have, which is that seed. Excellent. And then we need to spend an egg, because we needed the egg, because the egg was on the symbol at the top there. So we get 1 egg off of the sapsucker, and that's gone. And you can see over here it tells how many eggs we can have on our board, because you can only place bay eggs on your board. So I can have a maximum of 6 eggs out, because of the 2 birds have each 2 slots of eggs. You can also see up here, it tells me what people have done. And I can look at other people's boards. There's no hiding your board here. I can't see what's in their hand, right? But I can see this person has a mountain chickadee, and the chickadee already has 2 seeds on it, because they've collected food. And it doesn't look like they have, oh they do, they have the grasshopper sparrow here, which lays 1 egg on any bird every time that this is activated. That's pretty cool, and you can check out the other birds too. The other players. Well, this person's got a Cooper's hawk in their forest. This person's got the vulture in the forest, and this vulture doesn't take any food to play. That's what that means. But they're not worth very many points, and their ability is not super wonderful. It's okay. But let's take a look at us. Yeah, now we have to decide what we do. Now we do have 1 egg, but we have no birds and no food. So let's take a look at the birds, because we'll probably want to buy a bird. Now we should talk about this. So this is the end of round goals. So after in the first round here, after my 8 turns are done, this will be calculated for points. So right now it's saying, if I can hover over it, going to tell me? There. The number of your played birds with a printed value of over 4 points equals a point. And if you click over here, we can see how many points we get. We can get 1 point each, and to a maximum of 5. So every player can get up to 5 points here, and right now each bird worth less than 4 points, sorry, that's less than 4 points, is worth a point here. So we get 2 points because we have 2 birds worth less than 1 point, and the other players each have 1. This one here means how many eggs we have in the ground nest. This is how many eggs we have in the forest zone, or in the forest zone, the plain zone. This is how many birds we have in the forest zone. Pretty easy. We'll worry about these a little later. We should start thinking about this one a little bit for next round and make sure we do have at least some capacity for ground laying eggs. So let's think about that here. Are there any ground layers here? There are not, so we don't need to worry about that. What about the less than 4? Well, these 2 are both worth less than 4, so that's good. We also want another one of these guys, these bull birds, so that we can continue to work towards our thing over here. We need 4 to 5 birds to get the 4 points, and 6 plus to get the 7. Right now we only have 2, as it says right here in the middle. So we need at least 2 more birds to make that card worthwhile. So maybe this bird here. But this bird, what does it do? Well, at the end of round, so that means after all 8 turns in this first round, lay 1 egg on this bird for each other bird with a whole nest that you have. Well, this is excellent for our play, because we're going for whole nests. So let's do that as our bird, probably. Well, let's consider the other 2. This is a common goldeneye. We have the great tit here as well. So this one only lives in the forest. So the goldeneye can live in the water in the forest. I'll probably put it in the water, because we don't have anything there. The great tit. Reset the bird feeder. If you do, gain 1 food from the bird feeder after resetting. Neat. And then the white wagtail here needs 2 worms, and it lives in the water and the plains. If you use all 4 types of your actions this round, so this means the whole 8 turns, play another bird and pay its normal cost. I don't really like that ability. Let's go with the golden eye. It's the only one I can get because I can only get 1. We'll do that. Our turn is done. I think you pretty much got the base concept of the game. We just keep doing this rinse and repeat. Playing birds, getting food, collecting more birds into our hand, playing those birds. So we can play this one if we wanted to, but we don't have any food. So let's go up to the food. And we'll see the activation. I can get 2 food. And unfortunately, I need I need a worm and a fish. And right now, there's nothing in the pot that is a worm and a fish. We got 2 seeds and a rat. So I'll show you a little trick here. So first, choose from the bird feeder. Well, I don't need any of these, so I'm going to choose the rat. And why am I choosing the rat if I don't need it? Well, it's because if the bird feeder only has 1 type of food in it, no matter how many dice there are, so even if all 5 dice you here were seeds, you can re-roll the bin. You can also re-roll it if there's only 1 left. So we'll re-roll it and we'll hope for something that we need. Ha! So I get a nice selection here. Now I do have the worm, which I need for this guy, and I do have the fish, which I need for this guy. Perfect, but I can't get them both because I've already spent 1 on this silly rat that I didn't really need. However, if we look up here, when activated, and these birds will activate after I finished collecting my food, this one will get 1 grain and put it on the bird for a point, and this one will give me 1 worm from the supply. And the supply is not here, it's just sort of the general supply of worms. So I don't need a worm because he's going to give me a worm. So I'm going to get the fish instead, so we have the stuff we need to play the golden eye. Great. Now it's going to ask me, do we want to activate this bird? Because now we're activating the bird. Absolutely, we're going to activate this bird. He gets a little marker. You want to activate the bird to get a worm? Absolutely, I want to activate the bird to get a worm. Perfect. There might be scenarios where you don't want to activate. But for these 2, I think it's pretty much an activate every time because there's no real cost to activating. Awesome. So now we're at 3 turns left in this round. And we can play the golden eye. I can play it up there, but I'm not going to. I'm going to play it down here. Here's the golden eye. We'll pay those 2.
Common goldeneye. Goldeneyes do not excavate nest holes. They look for natural cavities or old woodpecker nests.
So a neat thing about this game is that every bird has bird facts on it, and the first time you play a bird in your game, like total, it reads off the special fun fact for the bird. All right, so now we're out of birds again. So let's get some more birds. Because we need more birds worth less than 2. Right now we have 3. So there's this great bird here, the warbler, which is worth a friggin' crap ton of points. I don't really like this bird. I don't really need this bird. I think I'll get the warbler. Even though it doesn't play into this end of goal thing, the number of points this is worth is just so astronomical that I want it. So we're going to grab the warbler for sure. And it fits into this whole thing. But I still need a ground bird for the next round. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend an egg up here to gain an extra bird. Done. So now we can get 2 birds. And we can do that because of this right here. I don't like either of these birds, so I'm just going to pick a random bird card here. That's a bit risky because you could probably get stuff that you don't need. So we got the common nighthawk. It is a ground bird. It is worth less than 3 points, and it is worth 2 worms. We could probably, won't be able to play it this round, which is unfortunate. Let's, if this bird is on the right side of all other birds in this habitat, move it to another habitat. Interesting. So you can move this bird around. And we'll do that one to grab the other bird, and that'll be that. So for instance, if the nighthawk was here, and we had played it, when we activate the water thing to get more birds, we'll gain 2 birds. And then the common nighthawk, if it is the furthest to the right here, let's say in this spot and there's no other birds here, then you can move it. You can choose to move it. You can move it over to here, for instance. And if I moved it to here, it would count as filling the space, and then I would get to be able to use this ability instead. Or I could move it to here, for instance, and I can move it up to here. And you can move it around for free to give you access to higher and more powerful versions of the actions. So we're in the last turn of our round here. I cannot cast any birds or put down any birds because I don't have any food. I just have a single rat. Neither of these needs rats. I can take a look at the birds down here, see if there's anything else I want. Now, if I used all 4 types at the end of the round, it gives me the same thing. It's the same thing as this bird. I don't really need either of these birds. This ground bird has a 2 slot, so I could use some more points because I can get 5 points in total at the end of the round for the ground bird eggs. This one only has 2 eggs, so if I had both these eggs slots filled up, it would give me 2 points at the end of the next round. But so I need more slot space. But that would be this one. It does have 3, which would give me the 5. It's not worth a lot of points and doesn't really add anything else to the rest of the build, except for maybe being in the forest or the plains. I mean. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think we'll just probably collect eggs again. Or food. Let's get food. Do this. So I need 2 worms, so let's grab 1 worm. And I need 1 seed for this one as well. That's all of that. I can't get any more here. I can't sacrifice food or whatever it is, birds here, to get more. So we're just going to do that. Yes, I want to collect from the supply to get this guy to 2 points. And yes, I'd like another worm, please. And that sort of takes us to the end of this round. 1 bird with end-to-round powers meets the activation requirements. Well, I think that's you, buddy. So the common goldeneye. Lay 1 egg on this bird for each other bird with a tree hole nest that you have. Absolutely. Well, you can add 2 because it's other birds, so it doesn't count itself, but both these birds at the top are tree holes, so it gained me 2 eggs on this bird. So now I have eggs and food for the next round, which is perfect. Then it calculates the end of round goals for the round 1. I was looking at the wrong thing. This is not less than 4, this is greater than 4. So these are birds that are worth more than 4 points, not less than 4 points. I misread the card. It's fine. So we didn't get any points. But the other players only got 1 point and 2 points, so it's really they're really not that far ahead. And we can gain points coming up. Right now we see we have 2 points in this round, with just having birds in the forest. And we don't have any points on these yet. Because I don't have any birds in the plains, and I don't have any birds with the ground nests either. And neither of them, of course, have eggs in it because I don't have any birds with it. So something to keep in mind as you're going along. So that brings us to the beginning of the second round. So begin the second round, and this time there's only 7 turns in this round, and we get to do the same thing, rinse and repeat as we're going along. I think that gives you a nice little summary of what the game Wingspan is like. I encourage you to give it a try. It's a great game. Very easy to play, has wonderful music, great sort of symbols on here with the birds chirping and patting around, and the ducks swimming in the water, and these guys zipping around, and they make little noise and squicks in the background, which is cute. It's got great repeatability of gameplay. There's lots and lots of birds that you can do with lots of combinations to gain points. And the person who gains the most points, of course, wins at the end of the game. So check this out, and check out other games on my channel as we continue this series, checking out fun games that I like. And I hope you've enjoyed. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and particularly like this particular thing, because a new series means more showing on the YouTube algorithm. And also let me know what games you like. Have you played Wingspan before? Do you like this game? Let me know your comments. Anyhow, we'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.